Welcome to the Cantina Chatter podcast. Hello and welcome to the Cantina Chatter podcast. My name is Victoria and I will be your host on this galactic adventure through Star Wars, toys and collectibles, pop culture, and randomness from the 80s and 90s. All right, so this is something that we all kind of take for granted, especially if it's sometime removed after, the film is come and gone. With the older Star Wars films, we don't really give it much thought unless we're talking with other Star Wars fans, which in my case isn't very often unless I have awesome company like Dave to talk the Star Wars film titles and kind of get behind the meaning behind the titles and how they play into the overall Skywalker Saga. So, Dave, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Victoria. It's really glad to be back here. And talk like you said, talk Star Wars with someone. I don't get to talk every day with people. So yeah, I'm excited.
I'm excited too. I'm showing my friend who's living with me at the moment. She's never seen any of the Star Wars films.
Oh,
so
wow.
yeah, so I showed her A New Hope the other night. We're watching The Empire Strikes Back, and it's very different. It's not the kind of thing she would normally watch, but she knows that I love it and she wants to know Star Wars too. So
cool.
Yeah, it's always
how's she like it?
She likes it so far. I mean, she says, "Hey, Victoria, this isn't like the thing I would normally watch. It's not the greatest thing I would personally care for, but it's interesting. I'm enjoying learning about what Star Wars is, and that's the thing about Star Wars. Star Wars has been around for so long. It's so ingrained into our popular culture, and everybody knows who Yoda is. Everybody knows who Luke Skywalker is. May the Force be with you." With the sequel trilogy, people I think kind of generally know now, who Baby Yoda is and who Kylo Ren is, things like that, right?
Yep, definitely.
So you don't really need to be huge like Star Wars fan to know a lot of these things, but it's interesting. Some people don't really know a whole lot of those things, but
generally, but the original trilogy, people know that pretty much through and through by now. But surprises me the people that kind of gave up on the prequels and really haven't gone back since they were released in theaters the first time. So yeah, maybe people don't think about this stuff as much as we do, but it's fun to talk about.
Yeah. So, I thought this would be an interesting one to tackle. It's not really anything I've talked to any about in depth in any way. So the Skywalker Saga spans the 9 Star Wars films that are central to the overall Star Wars story. Beginning with, of course, the Phantom Menace, all the way down to the Rise of Skywalker. So how do you think we should tackle this? Should we talk first about the classic trilogy? Should we begin with Episode 1? What's your thinking?
Let's just go straight through in chronological.
Okay, sounds good to me. So what we want to do is identify each film title. Each one has been discussed a little bit. When a lot of the time when these films come out, we might hear a little bit from, the directors about what the title means, but you kind of have to fill in the blanks sometimes. You have to, you got to talk about it a little bit and see, what other alternate meanings could there be behind some of these titles. So that's kind of what I want to do today. So let's go ahead and kick it off with Star Wars Episode 1.
Yeah, something that I hadn't really thought about the meaning of titles till I'm older now, more of an adult, and the first new Star Wars film I ever saw in theaters was Phantom Menace. I think I was 13 at the time. And originally all 6 Star Wars films, I just kind of took the titles at face value. Like the Phantom Menace, that must mean Darth Maul, right? But, like I said, I'm older now and I'm thinking more about Star Wars, thinking more about life and stuff. and there's a lot of ways that this could be interpreted. Did you come up with any alternative interpretations to the Phantom Menace other than just being Darth Maul?
Yeah, when I was a kid, or when episode 1 came out, I was a similar age to you, and I thought the Phantom Menace, that everybody wanted to know what is going to be the title of this new Star Wars film. There was so much hype behind episode 1 and its release, and it was insane. Not even the Force Awakens compares to what episode 1 was, the Phantom Menace. And they announced the title, the Phantom Menace, and it's so different because in the original trilogy, of course, the titles are pretty straightforward: A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. We'll get into what all of those mean, but the Phantom Menace, it just sounds like, it doesn't sound like a Star Wars film, like even now I kind of listen to the Phantom Menace. It just sounds a little more abstract, something you have to piece together. After I saw episode 1, though, I didn't see it to refer so much to Darth Maul. I interpreted it more as referring to Darth Sidious.
Yeah, I think that's where everyone pretty much landed. Definitely Palpatine, Sidious is the Phantom Menace. But, like you said, on face value, it was Darth Maul. And in the context of the story, they're really the only one that they know about is Darth Maul. And he kind of is the Phantom Menace. Yeah. But really, it's Palpatine. He's the one. Phantom means you don't know. It's unknown to someone. Right. So it seems like I've landed. I feel like that it's Palpatine. That he was the one pulling the strings. He started the trade war that led to the big galactic war, the Clone Wars.
Yeah, no, I think you bring up a really good point there. Just looking up real quick the definition of phantom. Let's see how it's classified here in the dictionary. So, a ghost, a figment of the imagination. Something that, like you're saying, is unseen, something that might be there and you're not really aware that it's there. And then menace, of course, something that isn't good for you. It's something that has maybe ill intent or something that could cause harm to you. So, it's pretty clear that whatever the Phantom Menace is, that it's something that, from the perspective of the Jedi, it's something that they can't quite pinpoint. It's a threat that's, obviously if you've gone back and read the EU and everything, it's a threat that's been building up over, 1,000 years, to come back and, retake control of the galaxy and such. If you go back to Darth Bane, I'm not sure if you read did you read the Darth Bane trilogy?
I have not, no.
Okay, so in the Darth Bane trilogy, and haven't read them in years, but it was basically, the Jedi eradicated the Sith, and the last Sith was Darth Bane. Darth Bane was the last Sith, and he was kind of like the last Sith to join also, and he had kind of a different vision. And it was really him that was responsible for the end of the Sith. It wasn't really the Jedi. It was actually Darth Bane that caused the end of the Sith. He did the thought bomb. He got rid of the rest of the Sith.
Okay.
And to start something new. So he took on an apprentice. He decided on the rule of 2, and it was going to be a long process to eventually return and overthrow the Jedi, the Republic. So obviously when here in episode 1 we're kind of oblivious to all that. The Jedi are kind of oblivious to all that. All they know is that the Sith have been gone for millennium. And now you have this new threat. Darth Maul has revealed himself. So I think you're right. In the context from where the Jedi stand, the Phantom Menace is at least in terms of where they are in episode 1, is clearly Darth Maul, because they don't know if there's, another Sith. They don't know who it is. And as the audience, we don't even know too much until, as the story progresses, we kind of see that at the end.
That's a really good point. I haven't really ever thought of that. I'm a little bit familiar with the Darth Bane. I was aware of him being the last one, but I didn't know all that you just said. So yeah, that's definitely something unbeknownst to the Jedi. The only other thing I could come up with was just knowing how George Lucas doesn't distrustful of institutions and everything. It's kind of what the first 2 trilogies are about. And I was thinking maybe the Phantom Menace could be the Jedi themselves. They're an institution. The point of the prequels is to show how they fail in their hubris and stuff, like Luke says. And the Jedi themselves are what allow, Anakin to rise up and become a Sith at the end of the trilogy. And it's because of their dogma and stuff, and things that they're into, that they shun Anakin. Yoda shuns Anakin in the beginning. He won't be trained like the other younglings. They say he's too old. the only way he can be trained is that Obi-Wan sort of defies the council and brings him on as his own apprentice because of Qui-Gon. So that's really the only other thing I could come up with, is that maybe the Phantom Menace is the Jedi themselves.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. That's actually an interesting thought. So, yeah, as we've seen like later in the prequel trilogy, things. Yeah, I mean that sort of plays out in its own way. I mean they're sort of their own worst enemy, the way that they've been doing things and not evolving and being kind of oblivious to, I mean, you even see it there in the Phantom Menace, like, how could the Sith have returned without us knowing? They weren't really paying attention. They were just so like used to, kind of being in control, kind of.
They became complacent. They're comfortable with their power, and they weren't looking out for anything to come. And a Phantom Menace comes and undermines them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's interesting. I really like that line of thought. The Jedi being the Phantom Menace, unbeknownst to themselves. That's interesting.
Yeah, maybe.
Now, here's another idea. What if Anakin Skywalker was the Phantom Menace?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I like that. You thought of that before too. What if he? It could be Qui-Gon's fault, right? If they didn't pick Anakin up, maybe none of this would have happened, and Sidious would have been overthrown at some point in the trilogy.
Yeah. Did you watch? Have you been watching on Disney Plus the Mandalorian, like the Disney Gallery documentary?
Oh yeah. I got through that right when it aired every week on Friday night. I was watching that. Definitely, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was awesome. What did you think about Dave Filoni's explanation of what the Phantom Menace means? What Duel of the Fates means in terms of?
Yeah, I really really liked that. I had never thought of it that way until he said that. I forget exactly. It's been a few months now since I've watched it. I forget exactly what he said, but it was really powerful. You could tell he was really passionate in what he was saying about that last final duel and between Qui-Gon and Maul and Obi-Wan and stuff, and how that really sets everything up and how it is so important to it. It kicks off all 9 films. If that doesn't happen, we don't have the story that we have.
Yeah, no, that's true, and yeah, I love the way that he explained it because. If you were just a casual viewer that watched The Phantom Menace, you might not have that takeaway, but the way that he explained it, he's just so rooted in, this whole Star Wars mythology and has such an amazing understanding of, what it all means. And to hear him elaborate on his point that way, it was just beautifully stated. And it made me really appreciate a lot more, what happens in The Phantom Menace and, the duels between, Maul and Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan and the Duel of the Fates, who's gonna train Anakin. So I mean, when you think about Anakin being the Phantom Menace, and that possibly happening because Qui-Gon died, I mean, it's just interesting. I mean, it's just these theories are interesting to think about.
They are, yeah. I mean, that's what my favorite part of the prequels is what Dave Filoni is doing there. The story, I think, might be the most powerful story of the 3 trilogies. Just maybe lost a little bit in the execution and some of the acting and the dialogue. But, when someone sits down with the passion of Filoni and explains to you what happened in the first 3 movies, it just really is such an enthralling story.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it truly is. Yeah, no, it's interesting stuff. And, I don't know if there's an official explanation of, what the Phantom Menace means. But, from a fan perspective, it's obviously something, that can be debated, something that can be theorized on. And, I really like this. And I especially like your idea about the Jedi. I hadn't considered that one at all.
No, this is the fun part. This is what we do, talking Star Wars. Nothing's ever truly officially explained, and there's always, from a certain point of view, you can look at it from any way, have debates back and forth, and nobody's ever really right, nobody's ever really wrong, and let's keep going. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, totally. All right, so the next title in the series, of course, is Attack of the Clones, Episode 2.
I'm glad you said it. I would have messed it up. I almost said the Clone Wars.
I don't think we really needed to spend a whole lot of time on this one. What do you think?
Yeah, it definitely, when it comes down to it, it definitely means Attack of the Clones. The clones are coming at the end to Geonosis. Just quickly, only thought that I had on this one, other than the clones, would maybe be it's kind of a clone is a copy of another one, and the dynamic and the power between the Jedi and the Sith has really been cloned and replicated again from the last film. This time you have Obi-Wan taking Qui-Gon's place, Anakin taking Obi-Wan's place, and on the other side you have Dooku taking Maul's place, and everyone's just kind of been cloned, and we're right back where we started. There is another Phantom Menace, you could say, and Dooku, who are we looking for? And there's Palpatine is still there. Right. And the Jedi are still going about exactly what they were doing in the first film, so it's kind of, a story about clones, and the structure is just cloned again.
Huh, that's interesting. That's a really cool insight. I hadn't quite thought of it that way too. I was thinking in a more literal sense, the clones. But now that I'm thinking about it too, could we also think of it as in a little bit of a prophetic way? I mean, you think about what happens in Revenge of the Sith. Literally, the clones attack the Jedi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I like that.
It's a different. I mean, it was another title that back then I kind of remember when it came out. Nobody was like the Phantom Menace. Nobody expected Attack of the Clones because, I mean, it's such a retro sounding title. Mm-hmm. We all know that George Lucas was such a fan of like the Saturday morning matinee serials that he used to watch growing up, and Buck Rogers, Amazing Stories, science fiction from the 50s, and. Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, I think a lot of people remembered when that title first came out, which, was a film from 1958, which is in that era, that Lucas, really started growing up and was, really, into the sci-fi and everything. So it seems like a little bit of a tribute, seems like a little bit of a throwback. But at the same time, it's kind of fun. I mean, Attack of the Clones. It doesn't seem like something that takes itself too seriously.
Sounds like an adventure, definitely adventure story. But I like that. I like that what you said. I can't stop thinking about that now. This film, this is the introduction of the clones, and that's where it ends up, right? They attack the Jedi, and this is the Attack of the Clones. So that's good. I like that, Victoria.
Yeah, thanks. So moving right along, this one's, I mean, it's something that actually, unlike the first two, I think people kind of expected this title. Just thinking back, I think people, before the title was announced, thought it was either going to be Revenge of the Sith or Rise of the Empire, as I recall. And thankfully, at least, I'm so appreciative that they went with Revenge of the Sith, because I think that's just such a cool title.
Yeah, definitely. My favorite of the first three here, and I think this one, there's not a whole lot to go on this. It is on the nose here. It's definitely, we could debate who it's talking about. Is it talking about Palpatine, Sidious? Is it Anakin? And of course, we know the original title, which we'll get to later, of Return of the Jedi was Revenge of the Jedi. And Lucas famously scrapped that, even after it was on some posters. So it was a little bit of a reuse too, you could say.
Yeah.
No,
it is pretty straightforward, but like you're alluding to, it's also the kind of thing that we can talk a little bit about, who's it referring to. So, like I mentioned earlier, when we were talking about the Phantom Menace's title, the whole thing about the Sith was something that was, and I think that, if you go into the Revenge of the Sith novel, it kind of elaborates a little bit more on it, but basically the Sith, were plotting this revenge for a really long time. Whether you subscribe to it being the 1,000 years, since Darth Bane was around, or it just being something that, like Palpatine himself was in charge of, for, the decades preceding Revenge of the Sith, the film. The Sith got their revenge, which was, the obliteration of the Jedi, and, they're positioning themselves to be in power of the entire galaxy. So I think if you're a general audience goer, somebody that's maybe not the hugest Star Wars fan, you just watch these films casually, you might be thinking Revenge of the Sith. You might not know about the background so much, but I think one of the great things about it is that, it could just, if you look at it strictly from a film standpoint, it could be referring strictly to, Palpatine being a Sith, Darth Maul, Count Dooku, Anakin, collectively the Sith, just in terms of what you're seeing in the films, are, reclaiming power from the Jedi.
Yeah, that's where I agree. I hadn't have a whole lot of thought on this one, but yeah, I like it.
And you also do get that line from Mace Windu where he says the oppression of the Sith will never return. So I think that's thrown in there to also, cue you into, the Sith are awful. At one point they did all, they were oppressive and whatnot. So And, you know, if you're watching this film in 2005, you've probably already seen the original trilogy. And so you're, you know, that kind of like, it's sort of a nod also to, you know, what the oppression of the Empire that eventually will return. So, yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, like the general audience doesn't know the backstory, and that's a powerful title, and revenge implies that there is story before it, that, you know, the Sith this whole time, they were phantoms and stuff, unknown to the Jedi. They show themselves in this film, and they're taking their revenge, which means there's even more story before these prequels, you know, they're coming back. So, yeah it gets the point across.
Yeah, it does. And I love Revenge of the Sith. Like you were saying, you know, best of the prequel trilogy. It just, you know, I remember first seeing it was so emotionally riveting, and just like, you know, it ends on such a downer though, you know, like you leave it, you leave the film like feeling satisfied that at the time the saga was complete, but at the same time it's like, man, like you kind of knew it was what was going to happen, but you know, just seeing it play out was kind of like, ouch.
Yeah, my girlfriend, my now wife, we saw this together in 2005, and I just remember for like 2 or 3 days afterward, we would even talk about it, just be like, why, Anakin, why? You know, you knew since you were a little kid that he becomes Darth Vader, but it was done well. You know, it kept me down emotionally for a few days.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah, brilliant film. Just, I love it. I got to watch it again. Next time you watch it though, count the number of times that ships like and vehicles like take off and land. It's crazy how many times it happens. But yeah, awesome film. Which carries us into the original trilogy where everything began in terms of the Star Wars you know, film universe, which is A New Hope. And as you know, A New Hope was originally just Star Wars. Even into the 90s, you know, Lucas was still referring to it as Star Wars, even as, you know, he had retitled it, you know, I think like right before
when was it officially retitled? Maybe like 84 or something with the VHS or something like that?
I think it was right before The Empire Strikes Back came out. They re-released it in theaters with the new title, Episode 4, New Hope. And then they released The Empire Strikes Back with, you know, Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. And, you know, and then they carried on from there. But I guess sometime after Star Wars was released and, you know, Lucas realized how well it performs and how much, you know, how successful it was, that he wanted to go back and tell those original stories someday. Obviously that didn't happen for a really long time, but he eventually got around to doing it. So I guess, you know, he was, you know, a bit of a prophet in terms of realizing that he would be able to one day, in fact, go back and, you know, start things from the beginning.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm glad we went in this order because starting off with A New Hope, you know, that wasn't even the title of the film, like you said, retroactively given to it. But yeah, on the nose, the obvious thing, which I think everyone in general audience thinks, it's about Luke. You know, the New Hope is Luke. He's the new Jedi to be, and he's the one that can take up the mantle of Obi-Wan and go after the big bad Darth Vader.
Yeah. So it's when you piece together episodes 3 and episode 4, you know, you kind of, you know, you see the birth of the twins. Yoda and Obi-Wan talk about hiding them so that, you know, the implication is that someday, you know, they'll need them, you know, to lead a new fight. And when you watch episode 4, it's never explicitly stated that Luke is the New Hope. It mentions it in the opening crawl, of course. You hear Leia say, you know, Obi-Wan, you're my only hope. So, more possibilities here. I think the general consensus is that it is in fact Luke. You know, Luke is coming into his own. This is where he first learns about the Force. He learns about Obi-Wan's background as a Jedi. He learns about, you know, that he can actually make a contribution to the fight against the Empire. And yeah, I mean, I think there's a really good case to be made that it is in fact Luke that is the New Hope.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's where I settle on it. But in the back of my mind, I always think about, like Luke says, the hubris of the Jedi. They sort of think that they can do everything. Like Anakin just wants to become more powerful, be able to stop anything. But in reality, it takes everyone. It takes a crew. It takes a lot of people to get something done. No one person can do everything by themselves. And I was thinking maybe the New Hope would be the rebellion itself. You know, just like the clones in the original or in the prequel trilogy, the Jedi couldn't do it themselves. They needed the help of the clones to back them up so they could do Jedi things to stop the Trade Federation and everything. And in this one, you need Obi-Wan, you need Luke, and they can't do it themselves. They need the help of a rebellion. They need Luke, they need Han, they need Leia, they need the rebellion. And maybe that's the hope that we're seeing a new spark. This is the first, they win their first major battle right before this film. The rebellion is finally getting some stuff done. They've got the Death Star plans, and this is the new hope possibly that's rising up.
Now that's interesting. That's really interesting. And you're totally right. You think back to the prequels, the Jedi, they needed the Senate. They needed them to be on their side. When they weren't on their side, they let the Empire come about. They allowed the Chancellor to have the emergency powers. They voted for that in. And even things like Bail Organa helping out Yoda. I mean, that shows, they need other people outside of themselves to survive. So yeah, that's an interesting way to think about it as well. The hope is that, the Death Star has been destroyed. The galaxy can see that, the Empire isn't in, there's not like completely a loss of hope. There is a new hope that it's possible to defeat the Empire. If you can defeat the Death Star, maybe you can overthrow the Empire somehow. So yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I mean, and I think what a lot of people got angry about with Last Jedi is sort of looking at the Jedi like they are superheroes, that they can step in like Superman or Wonder Woman or whoever and just, wreck ship and just take control. But like you were saying, everybody needs some help. Yoda needs help to get out of there from Bail Organa. Luke needed help, in The Last Jedi. Everyone needs help. Obi-Wan needed Han's help to get off Tatooine. So yeah, and in the help comes the hope that you can move forward and do new things. So maybe that's where we land. But yeah, I like it.
I love that. That's a great explanation. Yeah. So there's that. There's also, if we think strictly about the Luke, we got to think about Leia, right? Because they're twins. They both, you would think, have the same potential for for power within the Force. And obviously this being the first film in the saga or the first film in the original trilogy, the way that you think about it, we're seeing them for the first time on screen to really seeing them as adults now, fighting and pursuing. And we could also think about it being both of them, like collectively Luke and Leia, they both play such pivotal roles and bringing down the Empire. Maybe Leia not so much in Return of the Jedi as we see in A New Hope and Empire, but
no, strictly in this movie though, there's a case to be made that even Leia is the strongest character. She is most confident. She gets the most done. She seems like she has the most experience in every situation that she's in. Much more than Han and Luke. So, maybe it could be her. She's definitely has the potential of Luke and the biggest brains of the big three. So maybe it's her. Yeah,
that's definitely true. I mean, it's funny because their life experiences being so different. Luke and Leia, Luke growing up on a little farm in Tatooine, not knowing very many people, not knowing adventure, and then Leia, who's really in the brunt of the whole thing. She's out there in the galaxy. She's a member of the Galactic Senate. She knows, presumably she knows the Emperor. She knows, Tarkin. She knows, Vader. She knows all these things. She's secretly helping. I mean, she's been in the fight way before Luke ever was, even really probably considered realistically being able to be part of it. So that's a really good point. I mean, she really knows what's going on. She's very experienced. She's intelligent. And yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
And we can't ignore Obi-Wan also because she does say that Obi-Wan is her only hope. So I mean that's literally the only time it's expressly stated in the film that so maybe Obi-Wan coming back could be interpreted as being the hope. But yeah, I really like your point. I like seeing it collectively. Luke, Leia, Obi-Wan. The fact that the rebels did something and they defeated the Death Star. I think that, the whole thing could be seen as the hope, and I think that's my preferred take on it overall.
Okay, yeah, good, yeah. I like it.
All right, so that leads us into The Empire Strikes Back. Like Attack of the Clones, and we can talk about it, but this one seems pretty straightforward. This is something that actually happens pretty early on in the film, isn't it?
Yeah, to me, Empire Strikes Back means, showing their heavy hand. They're going to squash the rebellion. They're going to hit back hard. And this title is kind of like a trickery, misdirection, because yes, they strike hard. They force the rebels out of their base. They're fleeing throughout the galaxy. Everything is in disarray. Everyone has a pretty much bad time in this movie. Everyone ends sad in this movie. But in the grand scheme of things, yes, the Empire strikes back, but if anything, they end up galvanizing everyone on the rebellion side into becoming a bigger, better, more powerful version of themselves that will come back to haunt the Empire later on.
That's a good point. Not too dissimilar from what we see in the sequel trilogy, towards the end of it. That's a good point. So the Empire is, at face value, it's supposed to, obviously mean the Empire is striking back for the destruction of the Death Star.
Yep.
They come to Hoth. They obliterate the rebel base. So a lot of the rebels flee, but a lot of them die too.
Yeah.
And then they continue to have victories against the rebels throughout the rest of the film. I mean, obviously we see what happens with Luke confronting Vader. We see what happens with Han Solo. And Lando loses Cloud City. I mean, at that point we don't really see Lando as like a rebel, but he's, for all intents and purposes, he's kind of more on the side of the good guys by the end of the film. So, or he is squarely on their side by the end of the film. But I mean, they continue to. I mean, it's really the Empire's film in terms of the original trilogy. This is a film where you see the Empire isn't messing around. You can destroy their Death Star, but they're still at this point way bigger, way stronger than the resources that the rebels have available. And they're gonna come back and they're gonna get you.
Yeah, I think the oppression of the Empire, showing their might. It's just like you see in real life with authoritarian governments or whatnot. If they would just have chilled, let's say the Empire, they were just like, whatever, you destroyed our Death Star, but we pay you no mind, rebels. Maybe it doesn't inspire the rebellion to rise up and become better and stronger. And like I said, the adversity they face throughout this film. Luke gets his butt kicked. He gets his hand chopped off. It inspires him to complete his training, go back and become the Master Jedi that he should be. Even Leia, she finds love with Han and stuff, and to fight even harder. And Lando losing Cloud City and realizing his friends and the rebellion are what is important to him. So he ends up becoming a general. And, there was maybe a case to be made that when these, entities like the Empire or governments or whatever, you're not flexing your strong muscle, maybe you don't have as much of a problem with the people that you're trying to oppress.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a good point. It's a really good point. And I think The Empire Strikes Back does a really good job of showing that the Empire is more than just the Death Star. When you watch A New Hope, that's the Empire. It's the Death Star. It's the couple Star Destroyers that you see, or the one Star Destroyer that you see. There's like two or three in there, I think. But when you see The Empire Strikes Back and it shows the Empire for the first time, you see the probe droid launching out of the Star Destroyer. But then a few minutes later, you see the Executor, right? Like Vader's Super Star Destroyer. Yes. You see all these Star Destroyers that are tiny compared to it. You see TIE fighters. So, you're seeing right off the bat that, the Death Star is gone, but there's so much more to the Empire than just the Death Star. And, they're out in full force. They're looking to hunt down the last of, the rebels that destroyed the Death Star. Vader's looking for Luke Skywalker. We don't know yet early in the film why exactly. We just know that, obviously he destroyed the Death Star, so that's reason enough. But, you really get a good sense of when you see like the difference between the Empire and then you go to Hoth and see the rebels, they're on this little frozen planet that they have to close the doors just to keep warm. They have a few like tauntauns going out to kind of scout. And I mean, it's just like night and day.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. Excellent point. yeah, like you said, in the first film, the Empire is just Darth Vader, Tarkin, the Death Star, some stormtroopers. But not only is the Empire the machinery and the might that they have, they show you in this movie that you can't even escape the Empire. You think you're safe on Cloud City? Like, no, they have informants. They're there. Vader's there. They're behind the scenes. You think you're safe, but the Empire reaches vast and everywhere, and they're going to get you.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Very well said. I don't have anything else to add about The Empire Strikes Back.
No, I think we did the best we could with that because, yeah, good stuff, though.
Good stuff, yeah. This is fun. I like hashing these out. This is fun.
Yeah.
All right, so next, Return of the Jedi. What does Return of the Jedi mean, Dave?
It means Luke is back. But no, I think that's what the general audience thinks is, hey, he's back. He's Luke. You know, he's got a new lightsaber, and the Jedi are back. But yeah, what does it mean? It could mean a lot of things. We're not even sure who the Jedi is that it's talking about. Some things that I was thinking, you know, is it Luke? Are we talking about Luke? Anakin was a Jedi at one time. Is Anakin gonna return? We don't know. You know, before we see the film, will Vader turn back, or is it just the Jedi, the religion? Is it coming back to the galaxy, to its affluence and power once more? So yeah, that's kind of what we were talking about.
Yeah, so, this is another thing that we can, this title feels to me like, we'll get into it in a little bit, but the Rise of Skywalker in the sense that, there could be multiple meanings. And, we've said this for other titles, but this one, it's referring to the Jedi, obviously. So, we can talk about, the Jedi. And you did note earlier that the original title was Revenge of the Jedi.
Yeah.
And from what Lucas has originally said, that referred to Luke coming back and, taking his revenge over, the Emperor, over Darth Vader, over everything that's happened. But then he decided, no, you know what? Revenge isn't the way of the Jedi. They would not come back to get revenge. Instead, they would return. So, you first see Luke in Return of the Jedi, and this is not the Luke Skywalker that we've seen before.
No.
This is not the Luke Skywalker that started out in A New Hope on Tatooine, telling Uncle Owen that he was going to go to Tosche Station to pick up power converters. This is a very different Luke. He's kind of lost a lot of his innocence. He's had some of that adventure that he so craved, but it also, in having that adventure, it brought him face to face with the reality of what, of his family, of the galaxy, of what it means to fight against the Empire and be a rebel. You're going to lose people you love. You're going to have to, there's a lot that comes with it, because I think, when you think back to New Hope, Luke had really romanticized this idea of being off with the rebellion, being off on adventures, and then it got real for him pretty quickly. He lost Biggs in that in his very first fight, one of his oldest friends from Tatooine. And he almost lost his life. He almost lost, Leia. He almost lost Han. He lost Obi-Wan, his mentor. So, he's in a very different headspace in A New Hope. Not just like mentally, but like visually. He doesn't look anything like he's looked before.
No. Yeah. Even when we first see him and he's wearing black, and we're not sure, is he a Jedi or has he turned or not? But yeah, the evolution of Luke is really great. He's a farm boy, a child, whiny in the first film. He becomes stronger, more powerful in Empire, but we see that he's still naive and stuff. But yeah, he's definitely become battle-hardened through the events of the first two films, and he's completely different. And we do find out pretty quickly that he is a Jedi, and he's back, and he's got a new lightsaber, and yeah.
Have you ever seen that behind the scenes of George Lucas, like seeing like Mark Hamill, come out on set, like in his Luke Skywalker, Return of the Jedi outfit? Have you ever seen that clip of like the remark that he makes about it?
No, I don't believe I've seen that.
So he comes out on set. Of course, he's wearing like, the black. He's wearing like the robe, as he goes to like Jabba's palace, and he says something like, "That's very Darth Vader-like."
Oh.
So, I mean, I think it was his intent to kind of, like you're saying, kind of leave us hanging a little bit, like, what's going on here? Is Luke a Jedi? I mean, this is a Return of the Jedi, isn't it? Or, there he is choking these Gamorrean guards. Why is he doing that? The Jedi don't do that. We've only seen Darth Vader choke people out, in the first two films. So I think we're kind of meant to kind of think a little bit differently in terms of, you know, what the title means at this point, where Luke is in his, you know, hero's journey. Or you know, maybe he's going to end up like his father. You know, we just don't know. And that's made very clear in Empire too, you know, like, you know, the dark side, it's easy, it can easily grab a hold of you. Once you start down that path, forever is it going to dominate your destiny. So, you know, we're kind of not really sure with Luke at this point. You know,
wasn't that one of George's original ideas, to have the ending be Luke win and to put Vader's helmet on and say, "Now I am my father," or something like that?
Yeah, I've heard of that before. Yeah, it's that would have been a very different film.
No, I don't think that would have flew in the 80s with a lot of young kids and stuff.
Yeah, no, because, you know, by the end of Return of the Jedi, of course, Luke is meant to be like the quintessential, like, he's meant to have had, you know, the perfect, like, hero's journey. You know, he started off, you know, he resisted the call to adventure, but, you know, eventually he went on it. You know, Obi-Wan convinced him. He lost his family, you know, Uncle and Aunt Beru, and, you know, he's tempted by the dark side, but eventually he overcomes. So, yeah, it's, you know, the green lightsaber too, I know that they use that because I guess the blue lightsaber didn't really show up against the blue sky, like during the, you know,
the trailer has the blue one in it, right?
Exactly. And I guess it didn't show up too well when they were, you know, fighting over the Sarlacc pit, you know, against the sky. So they changed it to green. But if you're solely watching these original films, you know that the Jedi have blue lightsabers, you know that the Sith have red, but then you see Luke with green. So it's like, is Luke something different? Does that mean he's in between, like, you know, good and bad? So, you know, you can use that too, like, you know, as a visual metaphor for, you know, where he might be in his journey. And so the Jedi coming back. So, you know, we see as the film plays out, of course, you know, we realize that Luke's not a bad guy. He cares about his family. He has this vision that he can bring Vader back from the dark side, but it brings him dangerously close to actually crossing that line himself, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we see him multiple times almost. You know, he's warned in Empire Strikes Back that he might cross that line. He's going to face the Emperor and Vader, and we're led on early as the audience that's their plan to turn him. Another great thing about the title is it's ambiguous, that because we don't know Jedi is singular or plural, and we've come to know that it means both now. So, you know, he says that he's going to face his father, and we as an audience seen it for the first time too. Could Jedi mean more than one? Will Anakin and Luke rise up, you know, and return? So that's another thing that it could be, you know.
Yeah, no, totally. You know, Vader, you know, Luke is right. He's able to save Vader. Vader is able to, you know, put aside everything that he's done over the last 20 something years and, you know, realize, hey, this is my son. You know, this is somebody that, you know, this is the last bit of what I have over the love of my life. You know, Padme, you know, that I thought it was all gone. But it's actually, you know, no, I can make a choice here. You know, it doesn't have to be the Emperor or nothing, you know, so he chooses his family, you know, and Anakin comes back. He returns. But like you're saying, yeah, it is a word that, you know, could be singular, could be plural. If we're thinking about it in the plural sense, it could be Luke, could also be Anakin, could also be the Jedi collectively returning to the galaxy. You know, the Jedi are back. They are able to, I mean, I know revenge isn't the way of the Jedi, but they essentially, that's kind of what they did, right? They took revenge back against everything that happened in Revenge of the Sith, and they reclaimed the galaxy. And now there's these endless possibilities. Luke can train Leia. That's alluded to in the film. There's, you know, Yoda, pass on what you've learned. You know, Leia kind of starting to show, you know, that she is in tune with the Force as well. You know, Luke can go on and create a new Jedi Academy, which of course eventually he does, you know, later on. But, you know, just strictly speaking, you know, to Return of the Jedi, I mean, I think that's pretty beautiful, all the possibilities that you have in terms of, you know, what the Jedi are, how they're back. And, you know, just the happy ending that this film, like, has, you know, it's just such a good feeling. Like, I don't think there's anything more, I don't know about you, but I don't think there's anything more emotional in the entire saga than, you know, that very end of, you know, Vader fighting Luke, and the music, and just, like, every time it gets me.
Oh yeah, that fight scene at the end is wonderful. The stakes are so high. The little rebellion is able to triumph. And like you said, the ending is completely wide open. The Jedi have returned, and what wonderful things are to come in the future. You see the celebrations at the end, from the special editions and stuff, and all the planets that we've seen in the prequels and the original trilogy and stuff, and everybody's celebrating, and it's so joyous and wonderful. And Luke gets to see all his mentors, his father at the end there, and start his new life as a Jedi with his newly found friends. And it might be the best ending.
I think it totally is. And again, towards the end, Luke does come again dangerously close again to crossing that line, but then he realizes, when he looks at his hand, like, I'm becoming like my dad, and it's not what I want to do here. So
yeah, and that could be the moment right there. That could be the title of the film. That is truly when the Jedi return. He's not being trained by the Jedi Council. He's kind of at it himself with some help from Yoda. And he quite easily, like you said, could have turned. And that moment when he looks down at Vader's hand chopped off and throws his lightsaber away, and he realizes, no, I'm going to win, and I'm not going to be violent because that would be revenge. That's the true moment that the Jedi return.
Yeah, he even says it himself. I am a Jedi, like my father before me. So, yeah, that could be the moment right there. Return of the Jedi. And man, this is giving me the feels.
Yeah. I don't know. I want to watch a movie now.
I know. I did too. I can't wait. Especially because I'm doing this, like introducing my friend to these films. Like, can't
That's
wait
so
for
cool.
to see that. Yeah.
I thought about that a lot with in the context of having kids and stuff. And especially, with the latest trilogy, the prequel or sequels here. What order would you watch them in? Do you start them on 4, 5, 6? Do you start in the beginning? Then you kind of lose the Vader reveal. But let me know. Keep me posted on how she thinks, because I've thought about that a lot to see how you experience it. That's really cool.
Yeah, what I'm doing, and obviously people can do it however they want to do it. I started off with 4, 5, and 6. Once we finish 6, we're going to go into 7, 8, 9, and then we're going to go back to 1, 2, and 3.
That's cool. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's different, but I really wanted to start off with the original trilogy because, watch them chronologically up to, at least as far as the original trilogy is concerned. And, maybe then I could have gone back to 1, 2, and 3. I don't know. I just felt like
I like that, though. There's more of a through line there from 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You stay with the characters. Right. You watch them age in real time. And then, because there's not a whole lot of character crossover from the prequels to the original, and everyone that does is completely different looking, for obvious reasons. So I like that. I think that's a good idea.
I do too, and I think it's a little less confusing for somebody that might not, that really doesn't know anything about this universe, because if you don't do that, you could go 1 through 9, but then you're kind of left by, why does this look older than this and all that. I feel like at least if you do it this way, you're not jumping around so much back and forth and having to explain, it's because this, it's because that, this is the I feel like, I don't know, it just felt a little cleaner to me. But like I said,
me personally, I feel like going in chronological is probably not the best way to go. If you would do 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, kind of confusing. I did. I kind of do that with my husband because he isn't a big Star Wars fan, but with him, several years back, I did it from 1 to 6 because that's all there was at the time. And he was even kind of confused with that. He was like, well, isn't there one that came before this that has like Darth Vader in it? And I'm like, yeah, but chronologically, this is the way you need to watch them. And after that, years later, I kind of thought, well, I don't think I would do that again that way. Hopefully I didn't screw my kids up, because movies are always on in my house, and they've seen them in, I don't even know what order. They probably saw them, the most weird order ever. And my daughter's always asking questions about Anakin and which was Leia and which one's Padme. And that's Luke too, but he's old, and I think she gets it, but she doesn't quite. And maybe in a few years she'll understand the story and which order it goes in. But I think I'm doing all right. She's still a fan.
Nice. Yeah. That's good stuff. So let's end with the original trilogy here and go ahead and kick off, what is it, 30 years into the future?
Yep.
30 years into the future with Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens.
Yeah. I liked the title when it first got revealed. I think that might have been the first one that I actually liked. Obviously wasn't around for the first three, but my tendency is to not like a title the first time I hear it, and I don't think I liked the last two when I heard them the first time, but they always grow on me. But yeah, The Force Awakens, what does that mean? Is the Force ever not been awake? The Force went to sleep,
Yeah.
It's very vague and ambiguous, but just I don't know, it's maybe the one that you have to put the most thought into, and it's really not clearly answered until the next film, that the Force kind of was dormant because Luke is the last Jedi, apparently, and he has cut himself off from the Force, and there's really no light side of the Force that we know of when we start off in this movie.
Right.
And we also find that the Sith are no longer, and we're not quite sure what Kylo Ren is, or what's going on. So, like, what is the Force is almost like a question that we ask, and it's awakening somewhere, and I think the most obvious that we land on is maybe it awakens inside Rey.
Yeah, that seems to be the case. I mean, The Force Awakens, like, going into this movie, we saw the trailers and stuff, but none of us really, they were so, like, secretive about the story. Like, at that, going into this film, you kind of think it could mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, does it refer to a person? Does it refer to a group of people? Does it refer to the galaxy? Is it like, is the whole galaxy becoming Force sensitive now? Or like, you just don't really know. Mm-hmm. As you watch the film, the only real clue that we get, what Snoke says,
mm-hmm.
Have you felt it? There's been an awakening.
Mm-hmm.
Kylo Ren's like, yes. And the only person we're seeing using the Force at this point is Rey. So,
yeah, I mean, I got the feeling after seeing the first two before Episode 9, that I got the feeling that the filmmakers were kind of going the way of the Force is its own thing. It needs to remain in balance. It's not in balance when the Sith are in control. It's not in balance when the Jedi are in control. So maybe the Force Awakenings would be some sort of in the middle person, or maybe that's Rey, which I don't think that's the case anymore after seeing Rise of Skywalker. But that was something that I thought for a few years that it could have meant.
Yeah, it's kind of a hard one to talk about because I mean I don't really have
mm-hmm.
a whole lot of like ideas about it other than what I hear in the film. About Snoke talking about it, and then us realizing that Rey is using she's using the Force, but then I guess you can also think about Finn, right? Like he's left the First Order and he's kind of moved on to something new, and of course in Rise of Skywalker we learn a little bit more about Finn, but in terms of strictly the Force Awakens, you do see that he leaves the First Order and he's got he's dealing with things emotionally, like in his heart, in his mind, and he's going through a lot of changes. So I guess you could also think, maybe it has to do with Finn as well.
Yeah, we don't know a whole lot about what happened before this movie, but I feel like the more what we know about this, we learned from the other two films about the title and stuff, and we know that Snoke was just like a clone, I guess, or of something that Palpatine started, and we don't know when Palpatine, what he was doing between Episode 6 and Episode 7, but we know again from Episode 9 that he's the one pulling the strings. Luke has cut himself off, so we don't know. Maybe there was no Force users at this time, really. There was Ben, really, but Luke leaves after Ben is gone, cuts himself off. When does Palpatine come back and rise? So maybe we could look at it from both sides, I guess. I don't know. I'm stretching with this one, I guess. But yeah, it could be Palpatine and Finn and Rey and Kylo coming into his own. All rising and awakening at the same time.
Yeah, it could be, or maybe it's the galaxy kind of waking up too in its own way. Oh, the First Order is real. Here they are. Oh, the government, overthrown. The capital blown up. It's like it's just I don't know. I have a lot of problems.
This one's the hardest one. The more I think about it, I'm poking all kinds of holes in what I just said.
Yeah. Going back to Snoke, I kind of feel like, I mean, we learn about what Snoke is in The Rise of Skywalker a little bit, but I kind of feel like, you really gotta, this is the one where that movie is the one you gotta really like consider the entire like Skywalker Saga. I kind of feel like maybe we'll talk about it a little bit more when we get to that film, but I kind of feel like it's what Palpatine was saying in about Darth Plagueis in Revenge of the Sith. You know, he influenced the midi-chlorians to create life. I think that's probably what he was doing with Snoke. Like he somehow managed. He was trying to create like Snoke as his like placeholder or whatever Snoke's purpose was. Like you know, during that time. So something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You know, we learn in episode 9 that Leia had given up her training, so she's not really doing anything. We don't know when Ben runs to Snoke. We don't know when Snoke shows up. So maybe just the events right before this film, you know, Luke's gone, Luke's cut off, Ben is floundering, Snoke just shows up, Palpatine shows up, Rey shows up. So maybe it's just speaking about, and these are the events of the Force Awakening, you know, right before this film starts.
Yeah, that's true. Have you ever noticed in that scene when Luke says it was the last night of her training? It's like, wow, well she was essentially a Jedi then, right? I mean, she went through the whole thing. It was just like the last like trial, I guess, or whatever she was going through when she actually beat Luke in that moment. So wow. Anyway, I guess we can leave it at that. I mean, as from where I see it, it's Rey. I mean, the Force is waking up in her. You know, she's really tapping into this thing that she always thought was a myth. You know, Luke Skywalker. Oh, he really existed. Oh, the Millennium Falcon. You know, like, you know, even Finn. He's thinking about these things, and you know, he knows about him. But his perspective is obviously a little bit different. You know, having been raised by the First Order. But yeah, what
if the Force isn't the Force that we've come to know? But the Force is literally the forces rising, you know, the rebellion becoming the resistance and the First Order coming into the galaxy. And that's the Force that's awakening. I don't know.
yeah. You're getting kind of deep with that. Yeah, that it could be. It could very well be. So what is the next title up in our lineup here?
Oh, that would be the Last Jedi, the next film to don Jedi in the title since 2 films ago.
Yeah, that kind of, when you see it on paper, like written down, it kind of bothers me. And so does the fact that all the last 3, you know, 7, 8, 9 all have the in the title. Just, you know, it's not the hugest deal, but you know, it's very noticeable when you write them out or you see them like chronologically like written out. It's like, that's kind of weird. But
I like the title. The only thing that bums me out is not being able to call episode 6 Jedi anymore. But I mean, I like it.
Yeah, that's true, because we would always say Empire, Jedi. You know, I think episode, for a while, like A New Hope was just Star Wars, right? Like a lot of people would just call it Star Wars, you know, Empire, Jedi, and then, you know, we got the prequels, and yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
I do like the title of The Last Jedi. If I'm sure you've gone back and seen the documentary that's in the Last Jedi.
Oh, yeah, that's excellent, yeah.
Yeah, it is excellent, and it shows you, you know, what... I mean, Rian Johnson explicitly says what the title means, doesn't he?
Yeah, refresh me on it. I forget what he said about it explicitly.
So he's talking to Mark Hamill, and he reveals the title to him for the first time, and he says, you know, you can't tell anybody the title is The Last Jedi, and then he's like, that's you. So, you know, he's saying that it's Luke, and I think he's since then he's also come out and said it in other like interviews and stuff. But I would make this is one that I kind of disagree. I mean, yeah, Luke is classically trained the Last Jedi, but as we later, even this film, like towards the end, you kind of realize that that's not really true. I mean, Luke says it himself, like, you know, I will not be the last Jedi. So.
Yeah, thinking back on it, that was my original thought when I first heard it, and the first thing I thought of was Snoke from The Force Awakens. You know, if Skywalker returns, you know, the Jedi will rise. So yeah, that I totally agree with that. I definitely thought it was Luke, but like you're saying, more and more viewings, you begin to see that it's probably Rey, and there are others coming, and really they're not the last. You know, it's about the Last Jedi and them becoming something else after Luke.
Yeah, yeah, no, totally. It's even in the opening crawl of The Force Awakens. It says, you know, Luke Skywalker, the Last Jedi, you know, this and that. So it's pretty explicit in terms of that and what Rian Johnson has said. But I mean, even the film, you know, I mean, It really cues you into that not really being the case. You know, yeah, maybe early in the film, Luke's the last Jedi because he even says, like, you know, like he's the last of his kind. You know, when he's talking to Rey, like in the tree, you know, he's talking about the ancient Jedi texts. He's like, you know, like, I'm the last of my kind. And he doesn't want to train anybody. You know, he's gone through, you know, as we learn over the course of the film, you know, Kylo Ren has turned on him, or, you know, Ben's turned on him because he kind of turned on Ben first. And,
we're you know, hammered over the head, you know, that Luke is the last, that he's the last one, the last of the Jedi. But we see a lot going on in this film to show us that that's not true. We see, you know, early on that Leia, obviously, it's the first time we see that she can really use the Force in these saga films. Obviously, we know something's going on with her. You know, is she a Jedi? We see Rey become more powerful. Will she become a Jedi? We're even teased with... I thought in the first viewing that Kylo was coming back right then and there to Ben Solo, and that maybe he would be a Jedi. Could he be the last Jedi if it's not Rey? And then even at the end of the film, we see that the Force is everywhere, and I think that's what Rian Johnson really wanted us to see, is that anyone can become a Jedi, even the broom kid at the end there can wield the Force. So yeah, it's definitely Luke, but we're shown that, you know, it's not, that the Force is all around us.
Yeah, it's a really interesting take too, because I feel like when you watch The Force Awakens, like, you just see the excitement that Rey has when she learns that Luke wasn't you know, a myth, like he was real, and then, you know, like she learns about Han Solo and the Millennium Falcon and, you know, all that stuff, and in that sense, I feel like The Last Jedi kind of plays into that pretty well, like, you know, like I think that's sort of like, you know, when you're watching The Force Awakens, I think it did a good job of kind of taking you back to the original trilogy from a fan's standpoint. Like, yeah, if, you know, you're a kid, you're excited about Star Wars. Oh, you know, your excitement about Luke Skywalker and Han Solo and the Millennium Falcon, you're seeing that in Rey. And I think they did a good job of like capturing that, because, you know, you're getting excitement to meet these characters later, you know, in the story and see where they're at. And I think The Last Jedi does a good job of kind of capitalizing on that a little bit and saying that anybody, you know, that has an interest in this, that, you know, loves, you know, the story, loves Luke Skywalker and all that, you know, can tap into this, you know, and especially if you have that potential like somebody like Rey does. Of course, the story changes later on, but I think in terms of just looking at it from that perspective up to The Last Jedi, I think that was a pretty nice thing that it did, is kind of opening up the option, like, to, you know, you don't have to be a Skywalker, you don't have to be somebody that's rooted in this story already to be able to have an effect, to be able to play into the story, and I think it did that pretty well.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said, and I think, you know, it's no secret this film is very controversial. I think it fell flat with people maybe in the 10 years older than us, I think, that were the same age when we saw the prequels. And let's face it, the filmmaking was a little bit different in the original trilogy. It was a little bit smaller, and that's just the way stories were told and the films were made with the budgets and the technology that they had. And, you know, we only know of Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Luke as being the Jedi in the original trilogy and stuff. And I think what Rian Johnson was trying to do was just, you know, change the narrative here. A lot of that generation, they weren't into the prequels. They saw it one time and said, that's not my Star Wars. This is too flashy, too polished. Kind of ignoring the large Jedi. We got so many Jedi in the prequels and stuff, and just trying to strike a happy balance and show us that there can be more Jedis than Luke and Obi-Wan and Anakin, you know, and here you go, and we'll show you this subtly throughout the film, and, you know, that just the Jedi, we don't need one Jedi, you know, like I was saying before about a collective, a group, and that's what he was going for, you know, that Luke's not a superhero, and just because he's the last one doesn't mean that he's gone and that the Jedi are gone. Right.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Yeah, it's and, you know, it's something I've noticed more like during this rewatch with my friend. You know, like A New Hope does such a good job of pointing, like right off the bat, pointing out, you know, with the musical cues and, you know, just the way they treat each of the characters. Like, you know, it's very cut and dry. Like, who's good, who's bad. Like, Darth Vader comes in, the music gets all, you know, dramatic. You know, obviously he's bad. Princess Leia, the music gets a little bit more sweeter. And then, Luke becomes more hopeful. And then, just so, and what else I'm realizing too is like all the weirdness in this film. Cause like somebody that hasn't watched like these Star Wars films, like the original trilogy, it's weird, right? There's all these aliens. There's like the Banthas, the Jawas, the Sand People, the Cantina. And then,
not only is it weird, it's also dated, like the Cantina scene, like it's so normal to us, but there's guys in like 1960s NASA suits, it's weird.
Yeah, it is. And, like kind of watching it with her, I'm kind of like, I feel like I know these films so well, but then when I watch them, like I haven't really done this in a long time. So when I sit down and watch them with somebody who hasn't seen them before, I kind of start appreciating them a little bit differently. And I feel like that's what's happening to me right now. But, yeah, in any case.
Well, I'm jealous. I'm jealous now. I want to find a friend and make them watch Star Wars for the first time.
Yeah, it's interesting. I can't wait till she gets to the part about Vader being, Luke's dad. I'm going to see if I can. Like,
are you going to film it?
I think I'm going to try and do that just to see what her reaction is. Because, that's. Anyway, so, yeah, Last Jedi, it's Luke, but then we're very much cued into it actually being Rey, like by the end of the film. She's obviously, we see that she's grown quite a bit since The Force Awakens. We see that she's really tapping into her powers now. I have a lot of problems with the film overall. I like a lot of things about it too. But I like that it does end kind of on that hopeful, it doesn't end like the way the Empire does. It's like kind of like, well, shoot, Han's gone. Luke found out some bad news about his father. This and that. It kind of ends a little bit more hopeful. Luke's come back, he's inspired the galaxy, and more people eventually are going to rise up. But for now, it leaves with Rey, kind of coming into her own, being the last Jedi, and then also maybe as we're kind of, it's hinted at, there's going to be others as well, like you said. So yeah, it's an interesting title, and I think it plays in pretty well to the core of the story from that film.
Yeah, that's good. I think we hit all the notes, and yeah, let's move on.
Here's the last one. Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Yeah,
great. I think this is my favorite and least favorite title of all the titles. It's kind of bland on the surface, but when as we'll speak, I think there's a lot to this one. So yeah, it's got, I don't know what to think about it. What do you think about it? I like a lot, and then I don't like it certain ways I think about it.
When I first saw, we didn't know the title to this film until we saw the teaser in April 2019, or May 2019, whenever it was. When we saw that teaser, that was the first time that the title was revealed, and I liked it. I really liked it. I thought this is the first time we've had Skywalker like in any of the titles. It's usually been Jedi, it's been Sith, it's been Empire. Now we're having like it's focusing on the core of the Skywalker Saga. It's focusing on Skywalker, and I really liked it. And I liked The Rise of Skywalker. To me, that was a very hopeful title, and it was one that really got me excited for the film.
No, you're right. That's how I felt at the reveal. I was wondering ahead of time if it was going to be hopeful or not. Is there going to be another trilogy after this one? Is it going to end dark like Revenge of the Sith? So like you said, The Rise of Skywalker is hopeful. And I'm like, okay, this movie is probably going to end on an upbeat note. But then, I can see the criticism of it putting one of the characters' names in the title. It wasn't Episode 5, Darth Vader's back or something, But then again, let's dive into some of this. I think this has the most of any of the titles to talk about because I keep using the word ambiguous. It really is. There are no Skywalkers in this film. Like, Luke has passed, Anakin has passed, all the Skywalkers are gone. And yes, there are people who have the Skywalker lineage, but they're not Skywalkers. And we find out people's lineage, Rey's lineage and stuff, but they're not. So, what does it mean? We think, is it going to end on something hopeful? So who's a Skywalker lineage yet? Does Luke come back? There was so much going through my head when I first heard this. Does Kylo become Ben and come back, or will we be revealed? Has Rey been a Skywalker the whole time? So yeah, it was get your gears turning the first time that we heard it, I think. And yeah, so what do you think? Let's talk more about this. Like I said, I think this has the most potential.
Yeah, I think you're right. This is the one that I've been like thinking in the back of my mind that would potentially we'd have the most to talk about because there are multiple possibilities here. There's a lot of things that it could be, and I don't even think the film makes it very clear. So yeah, I mean, we have all the major players from really from the original trilogy are are at play here, even if they're kind of in the background, even if they're dead, even if they're not like at the forefront of this film. Their spirit is clearly hanging over everything going on in the movie.
And the obvious one, the real life one, I think everyone's fine with it now because they did such a good job with Carrie, but that was on people's minds when this, how are they going to do this? Is she going to be, how should she incorporated into this film as a Skywalker,
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really interesting. I mean, we know who the Skywalkers are, like you said, Luke, but he's dead. I think when the film came out, there was that backlash with The Last Jedi, online. I mean, in person too. I've talked to people, and they've told me the same things that you read online. But it was big online. You'd see a lot of stuff. It was kind of hard to talk Star Wars for a while without somebody bringing up how they didn't like The Last Jedi, or just.
Yeah, I came down that I liked The Last Jedi, and I kind of stayed away from the fandom a little bit there in between the movies. And I remember talking to people and stuff at work and stuff, and saying they really liked Solo, and it was so much better than The Last Jedi. And yeah, so yeah, there was that to deal with too. Extra scrutiny on the title at the time.
Yeah. So one of the things I thought is because obviously J.J. Abrams took over. It was supposed to be Colin Trevorrow, but it ended up being Abrams again. One of the things you're thinking is like, well, is Abrams going to totally redo what happened in Last Jedi and kind of retcon it in any way? So I started thinking, like, the first thing that I thought, Dave, was, are they going to bring Luke Skywalker back to life somehow?
Sames, yep. Yeah, there was those rumors about how much he was shooting and stuff, and how much he was on set, and it originally seemed like he was going to be in it a lot more, and my mind was going crazy. And I think there were leaks of, which I guess turned out to be the Trevorrow script about his Force Ghost doing a lot more than any other Force Ghost. So yeah, I got excited by that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. I thought, like, yeah, we see him die, but is something going to bring him like back to like the physical realm of of the galaxy? Is he going to actually like come back?
When he says at the last film at the end, see you around, kid, or like Han says, or like, will he literally always see him around?
Yeah, and he never does.
Nope.
But yeah, no, it's yeah, that was my first thought. But then, as you're speculating, I mean, no like true Star Wars fan cannot think about these titles and speculate in their heads, even if it's just to themselves. Like, what, how can I interpret this title? Where might it go? So I first thought Luke Skywalker, but then I also started thinking, well, like, is Skywalker going to be like the new name for whatever the Jedi are going to become? Because, especially after The Last Jedi, because, Luke's saying, it's time for something new. The Jedi failed at this, they weren't what they thought they were, and, maybe it's time for something, old things to die. Even Kylo Ren says it. So, you start thinking it. That was still in my head, like when the title came out. So I kind of started thinking of that too. Well, Skywalker is just going to be like the new name of whatever the Jedi evolve into.
Yep, that's what I expected. I thought maybe Rey would have a new Jedi order, but call it the Skywalker Order or something along those lines.
Yeah, Skywalker Academy, something like that. Yeah, and then you start thinking, well, Leia's still alive in the story, and Vader was her father too. Is what's going to happen with that? Are we going to see her in another capacity? I mean, we know in the back of our minds, very sadly, that Carrie Fisher passed away, between the release of the film. So, but whatever story, could have been there, obviously, things changed a lot. So, but you still think, well, are they going to find a way to somehow, elude the title to her? Is Ben going to come back to the light side? Is he going to be like, the last Skywalker or whatever? Are we gonna?
I had even heard some crazy theories that Hayden Christensen would be back and that Anakin would literally rise again. So yeah, everyone's minds were racing when this title came out. So like I said, maybe the best, maybe the worst, and we're definitely talking about the best of what this could have been here. But yeah, you want to get into what actually happened in the movie, I guess, and talk about. I mean, there's no right answer for this. So maybe we can talk about some of the things that actually happened in the film.
Yeah, let's do that. I just want to touch. Cool. I just want to touch on your point about.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
About Anakin, real quick. I feel like that was the biggest thing for me. The biggest thing the film missed out on, like, is not incorporating Anakin somehow. I mean, I know they did technically, right? But not really in a meaningful way. Like, I really feel like he should have been the Force ghost that that came to Ben.
Could you imagine if all those voices would have been, Force ghosts standing there, and we got to see the face of all those Jedi? Maybe something that only Rey could see that would have been shown to us. But man, that would have been. I think that was a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, I don't know why they went the route they did. I guess maybe they wanted to stay away from the prequels to some extent. Maybe they didn't want to. I don't know. I don't know what the thinking was, honestly, but I just feel like it was a huge missed opportunity. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love seeing Harrison Ford back in The Rise of Skywalker. I loved that. I in the moment, seeing it for the first time, I thought that was so awesome. But at the same time, when you think about the whole story, I mean, Han got, unfortunately he died, but his story was kind of complete by The Force Awakens, Anakin is, I mean, Lucas has always said that it's really Anakin's story, the whole, episodes 1 through 6. And I just feel like it's such a missed opportunity to not have incorporated him into that scene, or, just in some other way in the film. Like, maybe that's how you realize that Ben has truly come back. Now he can actually see Force ghosts. You see Anakin and he gives them that pep talk, like, I mean, especially when you, I know I'm going off a little bit of a tangent, but
no, go for it. Yeah,
Kylo is such a Vader fanboy, but then it's not Vader that appears to him when he turns to the light. It's Anakin. I just feel like there's so much lost potential there with the conversation they could have had, how he could have presented himself to Kylo, and what he could have told him about the dark side, or how he. I mean. They both did the same thing, right? They were good guys. They went to the dark side. They came back. I mean, they could have had such a beautiful conversation about that. And it kind of breaks my heart that didn't happen.
I agree. Yeah, thinking about it, if they could have done something with maybe the ghost of Anakin stalking and talking to Kylo, and maybe on the other side having Luke training and talking to Rey, that would have been really cool. And then that could have been the rise of Skywalker, those two, father and son, reuniting this pair and the Force, to do right. Yeah,
that would have been so poetic. Like, on one end you have Luke's Force ghost with Rey, and the other you have Anakin's Force ghost with Kylo. They're the dyad, right? And they come together to do something. Like, oh, man, it kills me, Dave. Anyway, as you were saying, about what actually happens in the film. Yes, go for it.
Let's see. The first thing that happens, I guess, would be towards the end of the film. The real rise would be the Skywalker that's left, who's the main character, would really be Ben Solo. His mom being a Skywalker, and he rejects the dark side there when his father comes to him in a memory. And he literally rises to the light, rises to the occasion, and as a Skywalker, and becomes Ben Solo again. Yeah,
that's a pretty literal. Ben does have that Skywalker blood, that lineage, and he casts aside the darkness. I think Rey helps him. And Leia, the way that she reached out to Ben. They basically together, I think Rey and Leia bring him back. I mean, I don't know that Leia knew that Rey was going to heal him. But I think, the way that it's presented in the film, it seems like Leia knows that Ben's going to kill Rey, right? So she has to reach out to him. Otherwise, if Rey's gone, then the story has a different ending, right? Palpatine, there's nobody there to fight Palpatine.
Yep.
So I feel like they both kind of have an equal hand in bringing him back. Rey saves Ben. He comes back to the light. he returns the favor later in the film. So yeah, it's in a literal sense, it does seem like it's Ben, right? I mean, he's taking the same path as his grandfather. You know, he's been a Jedi. He's fallen to the dark side, but he's been able to overcome it. He's been able to make a choice that, you know, this isn't the path that, you know, just because he started along this path doesn't mean he has to end on it. He can go back. And we see Ben do that. So in a literal sense, you know, just thinking about the story of his family, you know, it is Ben. You know, he's rising in the Force. He's rising back to the light. And eventually becomes a Force ghost, of course.
Yeah, and then what I was saying earlier about no one person really can do everything by themselves, and pretty much anytime someone rises to something, you need help. And like you were just saying, you know, Leia knows what Rey is going to do, and Kylo is about to kill Rey. Leia shows herself to Kylo Ben and saves Rey. Then, you know, Rey kills him, and then Rey saves him, and he's kind of being lifted up, you know, by the two women around him in his life, and allowed to carry on, allowed to continue, given a second chance to rise up, you know, to become what he trained himself to be younger, to be a Skywalker, a Jedi, you know.
Right. Yeah. No, that's true. That's true. Leia kind of has her own rise too. I mean, she dies. She rises into the Force.
Yep.
Becomes one with the Force, and you know, only like, you know, the I guess the good guys can do, and, you know, ever since the original trilogy, you know, it's you know, become one with the Force, you know, in a literal sense, like you are kind of a manifestation of the Force, but you still are able to retain your, you know, your physical form to an extent. So, you know, she kind of has her own rise. Ben has his rise in the Force. I mean, can we also maybe say Luke kind of rises in the Force, because he's already a Force ghost, you know, as we know, he dies in The Last Jedi, but when he talks to Rey, I
have that written down in my notes. I think I'm along the same lines as you, what you're saying.
Okay, what do you got?
I think almost the main three, the big three. This is the third movie. All of them, you know, this was supposed to be Carrie's movie. Unfortunately, she passed. But you had Han's movie, Luke's movie, and they're all gone here by the time we get to the end of this film here. And they've all literally risen into something else. You know, we see the memory of Han, Luke's Force Ghost, and Leia's Force Ghost at the end, and they have all risen, and they have all had a part in their own way in shaping Kylo back into Ben. You know, you see Han's sacrifice in Force Awakens, Luke's sacrifice in The Last Jedi, and then Leia sacrifices herself in this movie, and they're all part of the Skywalker Saga, and they've all risen to something else to help bring Kylo back to Ben.
Yeah.
So I don't know about that.
I like that. Yeah, I mean, it, like you're saying, like you talked about in your when we were talking about the original trilogy, like you can't do things on your own. I mean, you need to have help from other people in order to really, like, you know, it's usually not one person that, you know, you can have one person leading, but you need people to lead. And if you don't have those other people on your side, then, you know, it's really hard to actually make meaningful change in different areas of our lives. So, yeah, that's I like that take. I really do. But yeah, like I think when Luke talks to Rey and he says, you know, I was wrong, I did that out of fear. I mean, I guess you could construe that as like his own sort of rise. You know, he's evolved. And presumably he's had this transformation before he actually dies, like in The Last Jedi, when you see him, he actually does return to the fight. So, but it does seem like, you know, maybe he obviously has a little bit of a change that, you know, that he doesn't really speak to at the end of The Last Jedi, but he speaks to it in The Rise of Skywalker. So there's that. I know this is kind of, again, totally off topic, but wouldn't it have been cool if like Force Ghost Luke was like the crate Luke, like the outfit, the look, all that?
Oh yeah, I wasn't a fan of his outfit. You could tell it was like a wig, and it didn't look like it fit as well as it did in the movie before. But yeah, I'm still waiting on a action figure, a Black Series action figure of the crate Luke. I think that's my favorite look in the sequel trilogy.
I love it. That, you know, I haven't. like I love that outfit. I really do. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if do you collect the SH Figure Arts line?
No, but I've seen reviews and stuff, and that looks amazing.
Oh, it's amazing. I love that figure. I love that outfit. The vintage collection figure turned out kind of terrible. But just like, I love that card back, just seeing like Luke, like kind of a little more of an idealized version of Luke with his lightsaber. It's a beautiful card back. It's one of my favorites in the vintage collection. And I even had to order the Hot Toys figure because I love that outfit, and that figure is freaking awesome. So I would have loved to have seen Force Ghost Luke like that, be that version of Luke, personally.
Yeah, I just think some of the things that took me out in this film is the JJ and stuff were consciously staying away from things that maybe were prequel or Last Jedi and stuff. So I don't think that was probably the direction they wanted to go. That's his look was Luke there at the end of Force Awakens, and that's what he put him in.
Exactly. Yeah, and it makes sense in terms of that. Yeah. And it really does feel like they're playing off to a high degree from the Force Awakens, from one film to the other. Even if The Last Jedi didn't exist, I know people say that JJ kind of like retconned The Last Jedi and kind of ignored it, but that's not really true because Rey and Kylo still have that, that connection, that unique connection where they're able to communicate, no matter how far apart they are, they still have that. A lot of the conversations still revolve around like, what happened, like the Battle of Crate, nobody came. So, there's still a lot of things. And I think what happens, and I'll get to this in a bit, but what happens at the very end, I think is the biggest, like, acknowledgement of The Last Jedi. But, yeah.
No, I think I'm aware of the criticism. I get it, where people are coming from. But it's not really fair because anytime you make a sequel, you're always retconning the one that came before it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a sequel. It would be a new movie.
That's true. Yeah, you're always building on what came before. You're always going to have more to tell. Otherwise, what would be the point? You're always going to be like elaborating on something or, giving different perspectives, the story is evolving. It's just like real life, we might know something to be true one day, but the next, we learn more about it. We learn more about our families. We learn more about ourselves. We learn more, we evolve on things, our ideas, our thoughts, our interests. So I think it's natural for a movie to continue to build on different concepts, but in any case, I forgot what we were talking about.
I do too. Let's just move on to some other literal things that happened in the film.
Yes.
That's like the final and last thing as far as the big story goes is literally Ben and Rey just keep getting up on the fight at the end. They're knocked down by Palpatine. They keep rising. Being that Ben is of Skywalker lineage and Rey assumes the Skywalker name at the end, they're Skywalkers and they just keep getting back up. They keep rising and standing up to the powers of oppression. Yeah,
that's true. They do. They the dyad wasn't really explained very well in the film, which I think is kind of one of its bigger issues. But I still love the film. It's my favorite of the sequels. But yeah, you do see them rise up together and up to a point, and then of course, Palpatine's like, the way that I fell, you're gonna fall too. Which is like, okay, is he that petty? Really, he has to do it that way. But anyway, so I guess he is right. He's Palpatine. So, yeah, I know I keep going off tangents, but I love that Rey kicked Palpatine's ass. I really, really love that, but. It just seems like, in terms of the narrative of the trilogy, would have fit a little bit more for it to have been both of them, especially because they had that dyad, together, to both of them to hear the Force ghosts and to take on him together. I think it's kind of a little bit of it kind of confuses me a little bit too, but that's the movie.
Yeah, it still ends the same way, I guess, but I agree.
True.
I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah. Anyway, so Rey and Kylo, they've risen together against Sidious, against Palpatine for the last time. So that's another way we can construe the rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, at the end, we kind of see the rise of Ben after he brings back Rey, returning the favor from earlier, and we see another actual Skywalker, rise up again to become one of the luminous beings, like Yoda says. So again, another literal rise up of a Skywalker, I guess.
Absolutely. He's rising the same way Anakin did. He came back from the dark side. He became a Force ghost. We see Anakin at the end of Return of the Jedi, which we don't see him at the end of the Rise of Skywalker. That's another thing that kind of boggles my mind a little bit. I mean, when you see it in Return of the Jedi, like Anakin's not just there. You see Obi-Wan and Yoda, and then Anakin kind of just like fades in. I kind of feel like that would have been a little bit more fitting for the Rise of Skywalker. Like, show Luke and Leia, but then just kind of have Ben kind of fade in, and then Rey focuses on him at the last second, smiles, and then that's when she's Skywalker. I think that would have, I don't know. I love, like I said, I love this movie, Dave. It's just some of the decisions really get to me.
Did you do you ever watch the How It Should Have Ended on YouTube? They do one spoofing the end of this movie where all the Jedi ever come back and they all kick Palpatine's butt.
Yeah, I did.
It's goofy stuff.
Yeah, so there's one thing that happens there at the end of this film that I think kind of maybe says more to the title than anything else. You want to tell us what happens?
At the end, all the Skywalkers, the actual Skywalkers, are gone. We know Rey is a Palpatine, and she returns to Tatooine to bury Luke and Leia's lightsabers by the Skywalker homestead there on the farm. And she's asked by one of the local women, or a woman there, Rey, who are you? And she takes on the name of Skywalker. She doesn't want to be a Palpatine. She wants to be a Skywalker. She gets to choose her lineage, which is something that not everyone in Star Wars has been able to do. And that's how we end the entire saga on Rey Skywalker.
Yeah, I really love the ending. I mean, just despite my nitpicks with it, I mean, I really love the way that this trilogy ends. And when she ignites that lightsaber, it's not, you might expect it's going to be blue, right? And this is what I was kind of alluding to earlier. I kind of feel like maybe this was JJ's last little nod, maybe to the Last Jedi, the last little thing that she's not exactly. She is the Last Jedi, maybe, but she's going to do something a little bit different. She's not going to have that blue lightsaber. She's going to have... Yeah,
you're right, yeah.
Yeah, it's yellow. She's still doing her own thing. She's still something that's different from a Jedi. So it's I don't know. I really loved it. It always kind of gives me the feels. I smile, I tear up a little bit when she claims that name, because it's the same thing we all do, as kids when you're playing Star Wars. It's like you want to be the hero, you want to have the lightsaber, and all that. And you see that she has her own lightsaber, and I love that.
No, yeah, I think we've discussed this movie before. This movie is a lot of hot, a lot of cold for me. It's kind of up and down. Parts I love, parts that I don't like. And I think overwhelmingly, if you'd ask just the general person, I don't think that was well received, that she's a Skywalker at the end. But I really like the way that ends. That was one of my favorite parts of the movie.
I do too. My favorite take that I've heard on it is Ray Carson, who wrote the novel for the Rise of Skywalker, the novelization. She had a really good explanation for how she interpreted the title, and it's been my favorite thing that I've heard in terms of why she takes on that name. And I'll go ahead and read it right here. I have it here from StarWars.com. So they're asking her, StarWars.com, Rey famously takes on the Skywalker moniker at the end of the story. What does this mean for her, and how does it enhance her journey since we met her on Jakku? And Ray Carson, which isn't it interesting how the author of the book's also named Ray. She says, when I was 18 years old, I took on the moniker of my stepfather to honor the bonds of love and trust between us. I imagine it was much the same for Rey, who wanted to honor her chosen family. Then she goes on to say, I recognize that Rey's decision proved controversial, and I look forward to discussing this with fans for years to come. But my current take is this. The entire Skywalker saga is about Palpatine turning or trying to turn Skywalkers to the dark side. He especially hopes that Rey will prove a worthy vessel for his own power and ambition and become the Skywalkers' final downfall. But in spite of all his efforts, over the course of 3 generations, he fails. Rey rejects everything about him and takes the Skywalker mantle and legacy. In the end, it's a Palpatine who turns to the light, thus handing the Skywalkers their ultimate victory.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I like that. I never thought of it like that.
Yeah, that to me, that's a perfect explanation.
Yeah.
I don't need anything more than that. I completely agree, and I think it's beautiful.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's great. Thinking as powerful as Palpatine thought that he was, that's a twist in the knife in at the end there, is that not only were you defeated again by trying to go to someone who's not a Skywalker, first of all, but it's your own flesh and blood, and then she becomes your downfall at the end and becomes Skywalker. So that's great, yeah.
It is great. It's a little bit of a sort of revenge of the Jedi in its own way, too.
Should have been Revenge of the Skywalker.
Yeah, but no, I think that's a pretty good place to end it at. I think we've done a pretty good job covering all of these titles, kind of exploring, the hidden meaning and the obvious meaning, and how they play into the overall story of the Skywalker Saga. Do you have anything you want to add?
Oh, no, I think we covered everything. And just say that this was a lot of fun. This was a departure from our normal just sort of recapping news and recapping episodes and films and stuff. But we really dug in there. Some things were maybe a little philosophical. Some things were peeling back some layers of the fruit here of the films. And it was a lot of fun, something different, I think. And I hope everyone enjoyed listening to it. I had fun talking about it. I think we came up with a lot of ideas on the fly here, and even as I'm recording, I'm trying to be prepared, and you're making me think, and it was a lot of fun. So thanks. Yeah,
you bet. And you're making me think, and I completely agree. This was a ton of fun, and going into this episode, I kind of thought, well, we're going to talk about each title, and I kind of thought in my head, it was going to be pretty straightforward, but you've helped me realize things that I hadn't really considered before about these films.
Yeah, same here.
We talk about these movies, a lot. I've had you on the show before, but like I said at the beginning, the titles are kind of something we to an extent sort of take for granted because the titles are what they are. But when you really break down and, think about what other people have said, what happens in the films, and our own little theories that we were discussing, they really kind of open your eyes to different aspects of the Star Wars universe and, give you new ideas and new thoughts and a new appreciation ultimately of these titles and these films.
Yep. Again, a lot of fun. Thank you so much for coming up with this idea, and it was a blast recording.
Absolutely. It was a blast. And Dave, as always, thank you so much for coming on to the show. And where can our listeners go to find you on social media?
Pretty much any social media you can look under and find me under Jurassic Dave 93. Instagram is where I do most of my work. Also have a Twitter, Jurassic Dave 93, and just a handful of videos if you want to watch me open up some dinosaur toys on YouTube under Jurassic Dave 93. But yeah, I love talking Star Wars, anything pop culture. I'm into the Marvel movies, superheroes. Batman's my favorite, and of course Star Wars and Jurassic Park are my bread and butter. But yeah, hit me up. I'll talk to anyone about anything you got.
That's awesome. Well, hey, thanks so much, Dave. And as always, it's been a huge pleasure. Thanks for sharing your insight with us and talking these film titles with me.
All right. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care. And that's a wrap for this episode. Victoria's Cantina began on YouTube, and you can find plenty of toy content on the Victoria's Cantina YouTube channel. We are also on Instagram, constantly showcasing toy photography at Victoria's Cantina, as well as Facebook at Victoria's Cantina, and on Twitter, ranting and raving about toys and other nonsense at Vic's Cantina. For fun and random toy clips, follow us on TikTok at Victoria's Cantina. Got a question or something you'd like to share with us? Drop us a line in the fax machine. You can email victoriascantina@yahoo.com. If you are so inclined and wish to drop a coin in the tip jar, we are on Patreon, where you can gain greater access to the channel while helping to keep the content rolling. For VC branded merchandise such as t-shirts, ball caps, mugs, and other fun stuff, visit us on Teespring and TeePublic. Links to all of these magical places can be found in the show notes. Do you got a minute or two? If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, please leave us a 5-star rating and drop a brief review explaining why you enjoy the show. As always, I'm Victoria, and no matter where you're listening out in the galaxy, I'd like to thank you for tuning in to the Cantina Chatter podcast.